Welcome to the URS Savings Plans video. My name is Mike Wilson with Utah Retirement Systems, and in this video we want to talk about your savings plans and investment options. It'll be helpful as we go through if you have either a hard copy of our investment options and savings plans overview, or if you don't have a hard copy, you can download one right now off the URS website. At the top of the page, you can click on the Publications link, scroll down to the Savings Plans section, and then in that section, look for Investment Options and Savings Plan Overview. I'll wait if you want to download one. All right, hopefully now you have a copy of that either in your hands or on the screen that you can follow along. So one question is, why should you save now? The retirement benefits provided through URS by your employer, in either the Tier 1 or the Tier 2 system, are great. But are they going to be enough to retire on? Well, we retire folks every day in our offices in St. George and Salt Lake City, and no one has yet to come through with too much money in retirement. So our encouragement to you is to save on your own as well for retirement. So additional retirement income, again, because nobody retires with too much money, it's always great to have a little bit extra for emergencies, maybe for extra trips or opportunities throughout retirement. Also, tax savings. If you feel like you're paying too much in taxes, pay attention. Some of the plans we're going to talk about will be very appealing to you, could save you money on your tax return. Another reason, and probably one of the more important reasons, is to take advantage of the time that you have available for your money to grow throughout your working years. It's also referred to as compounding, or the idea of earning interest on interest. So let's take an example, and it's called the Rule of 72. And the Rule of 72 works like this. You take 72 and divide that by your rate of return, whatever rate of return, your interest rate or growth rate that you think you're going to earn on your investments. Take that result, and that tells you the number of years that it takes you to double your investment. So for example, let's assume you're going to have an investment that earns 8%, just to keep the math simple. 72 divided by 8 equals 9. So about every 9 years or so, your money should double. So let's say, for instance, you invest $3,000 this first year and you earn 8% on it. Well, you can see in 9 years, your money is going to grow to about $6,000. Another 9 years, your money has doubled to $12,000. Another 9 years, your money has now doubled to $24,000. Notice the money is doubling each year. It's not 3, 6, 9,000. It's 3, 6, 12, 24. Add another 9 years, all the way out to 36, you're talking $48,000. And you may say, well, geez, $48,000, how long is that going to last me in retirement? Probably not very long, maybe a year or two, depending on how far away it is from retirement. So let's pretend you're not doing this $3,000 just one time. Let's pretend that you're going to do this for several years in a row. In fact, let's pretend you're going to do this maybe just for 10 years in a row. Well, now you can see, once we're out to doing this 10 years in a row, now we're talking maybe $60,000 in 9 years, maybe $120,000 in 18 years, and on it goes. At this point, hopefully you can see those numbers get pretty big. And that's the idea of taking advantage of this time that you have to work and save towards your retirement, this idea of compound interest. So if you have the brochure in front of you or you're looking at the online copy, let's look over on page 3 and talk about the different types of plans that are available to you that you can save for on your own. Let's begin with the 401k and the 457. The 401k, if you're familiar with it in the private sector nowadays, is pretty much the retirement plan of choice. And private sector, pretty much all you find nowadays are 401k plans. The 457 is essentially the state government version of a 401k plan. It's only available to us as state government employees. And when I say state, I mean city, county, state, so forth, school districts. Basically anybody who's part of the URS system. The plans are very similar, nearly the same in all respects, with a couple key differences, and we'll walk through those. I mentioned earlier, though, taxes. So if you feel like you're paying too much in taxes, saving in either the 401k or 457 is a great way to go. Here's why. Let's pretend you're making $40,000. And over this next year, let's say you decide you're going to put $3,000 away into, let's say, the 401k plan. Next January, when you get your W-2 from your employer, it's going to show you only made $37,000. So you really made $40,000. Your W-2 only shows $37,000. So you hid $3,000 legally from the IRS. Now, do you really hide that money from the IRS? No, because later on in retirement, that's when you're going to pay tax on it. But if you need a tax break today, like to lower some of your income, hide some money from the IRS, and put some aside for retirement, 401k, 457 are great options for you. How much can you put away in these plans? If you look down at the bottom of the page, you can see the current year limits. If you're under age 50, there's one limit. If you're over age 50, there's a different limit. Good news, those limits are pretty high. Even better news, you can have both plans and you can max both of them out. So needless to say, you can put a lot of money away between these two plans. In addition, just above that, you can see that both plans also have loan provisions. That allows you, in essence, to borrow from yourself. Now, as a retirement counselor, I got to say, try not to take advantage, try not to use the loan provisions because, as we said earlier, nobody retires with too much money. We all probably can and should be saving more for retirement. But it's nice to know in a pinch, if you need to, you could, in essence, borrow from your retirement plan, borrow from yourself. You basically just pay yourself back over time. The biggest difference between the two plans is about halfway down here. The 401k has a 10% early withdrawal penalty, whereas the 457 plan does not. And it works like this. Let's say, for instance, you're in your 20s and you work here another 10 years, and then you quit, move out of state, go to work, private sector, whatever the case may be. And let's pretend you've got maybe $50,000 in your 401k by that point in time. If you wanted to, at that point in time when you quit, you could cash out your 401k. Now, if you do so, IRS isn't really happy when you do that. So what happens? Well, you have to pay state and federal income tax on the entire $50,000. In essence, you just wrote yourself a $50,000 bonus check, which will most likely push you up into a higher tax bracket. And on top of that, you'd also owe a 10% penalty to the IRS, so an extra $5,000. And it's both. You pay tax on the full $50,000 and you pay the $5,000 penalty. So that penalty is there really to discourage you from taking this money until you reach retirement, which in the IRS's mind is 59.5 or later. If you were in the 457 plan, on the other hand, same scenario, maybe you're in your 20s, you work 10 years, you got your $50,000, you quit, you could cash the 457 plan money out. If you did, all $50,000, still subject to state and federal income tax, but there's no 10% early withdrawal penalty. And that's typically the biggest difference between these two plans. Now, ideally, you save this money until probably, let's say, your 60s. Basically when you reach a more realistic retirement age. But you can, if you want to, cash this money out earlier. Now, I also have to tell you, one of the biggest sources of regrets we hear from folks who do come in and get ready to retire, they almost always look back and they say, you know what, when I was in my 30s, I changed jobs and I cashed out my 401k, didn't think it was that much money at the time, $5,000, $10,000, whatever the case may be. We almost always hear pangs of regret from these folks because they realize if they had left that money in the system or left the money in some type of retirement account and that rule of 72 that we just talked about had applied, they might have had tens of thousands of dollars. So again, our encouragement to you, if you ever do change jobs, try to leave that money in a retirement account so it'll be there for you when you reach retirement age. Now let's talk about the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA. The traditional IRA tax-wise works a lot like the 401k 457. Typically that means you get your tax break today, but then in retirement when you take money out of your traditional IRA, that's when you have to pay tax on it. The Roth IRA flips that scenario. So the Roth says no tax break today, but when you're in retirement, any and all money you take out of the Roth is totally state and federal income tax free. So let's look again at our example. I'm making $40,000. I decided to put $3,000 into this time the Roth IRA. I get my W-2 from my employer next January, it's still going to say I made $40,000. So this is not helping me hide any money from the IRS today. I'm not getting any tax break on my $3,000 Roth contribution. Now let's pretend I put $3,000 a year for maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Maybe I have 50, 100,000 bucks in my Roth IRA. When I hit retirement, I can take any of that money out and I won't have to pay a dime of state or federal income tax on it. No tax on any dividends, no tax on any interest, no tax on any growth whatsoever inside the Roth IRA. Now, to play the Roth game, there are 2 key rules. The first is the Roth has to be open for at least 5 years. And the second is you have to be past 59 and a half when you take money out of the Roth. So if you meet those 2 requirements, you can have tax-free income available to you in retirement. For all of us as members of the URS system, I would encourage you to give some serious thought to the Roth, and here's why. Remember, your Tier 1 or Tier 2 retirement benefits provided by your employer, those are all going to be taxable to you in retirement. Social Security, whatever form it happens to be, is going to also be taxable to you in retirement. Any money you voluntarily put in the 401k, 457, also taxable to you in retirement. Hopefully you can see where this is going. So your only potential resource for tax-free money is going to be the Roth IRA. So again, give it some serious thought, not because it helps you out with today's taxes, it doesn't. But when you're in retirement, wouldn't it be nice to have the flexibility to go get some tax-free income if you needed it? So here's the 4 plans. Which ones are right for you? Good news, again, you can have a combination. You're not limited to just one. And we do see members, for instance, pair the 401k and say the Roth IRA. They'll use the 401k because they want a tax break today. They'll also put money in the Roth IRA because they're looking for that tax break down the road in retirement. Again, you can choose between any of the plans that you want, assuming your agency offers all of them. Which, by the way, let's say, for instance, that your agency, for whatever reason, doesn't offer the IRAs through payroll deduction for you. You can still open those with URS. You just do that directly with us. There's a 1-page form here on our website. You can fill that out and send in a check, for instance, to make your IRA contribution for the year. But let's assume all 4 plans, again, are available to you. You can pick and choose between any of them that you want. The system is very flexible because we have, in essence, year-round open enrollment. You can start your 401k whenever you want. You can stop it whenever you want. You can increase your 457 contribution whenever you want. You can decrease it whenever you want. You make all those changes online. We'll go through an example of that in just a little while. But the point is, you have a lot of control. You have a lot of flexibility with using these plans to save for retirement. That said, let's say, for instance, your employer offers some type of matching contribution. If they offer any type of match, that's really the first place your own voluntary dollars should go, because you always want to take advantage of employer match. That's essentially free money provided to you by your employer to encourage you to save for retirement. If you are looking for a tax break, 401k, 457, that gives you that tax break today. If you're worried about, say, withdrawal penalties, maybe you're not sure how long you're going to be part of the URS system. Well, you might want to use the 457 plan because, again, with the 457 plan, there's never a 10% early withdrawal penalty. If you're thinking, I want to put away a lot of money, great, 401k, 457. They have much greater contribution limits than the IRAs do. You'll notice the IRAs, the only real sort of downside or one potential downside to them is you just can't put as much money into them. What if you're thinking, well, you know what, in an emergency, I'd like to be able to get to my money. Again, the loan provisions of the 401k, 457. So the plan or plans that are right for you might be totally different than someone you work with. Again, it's totally open to you. You have complete control of which plans you want to use. Now, that brings us to Salsa. And you're thinking, what does Salsa have to do with saving for retirement? Well, let's think of it this way. Think about all the different ingredients that go into salsa. Tomatoes, onions, cilantro, jalapenos, lots of different ingredients. And let's say, for instance, though, that I gave you maybe just a bowl of diced tomatoes and a bag of chips. That's it. Would you dive in? Well, I might eat 4 or 5 bites and then I think, really? There's got to be more to life than just diced tomatoes, because this is kind of boring, kind of bland. On the other hand, what if I gave you a bowl of diced jalapenos and a bag of chips? Would you dive into that? I wouldn't. I'd have no esophagus, no taste buds for the rest of my life, so that's not going to be my choice. So on their own, you may or may not like some of these individual ingredients, but when you blend them together, you get salsa. And little jalapeno and salsa is actually kind of nice. Gives a little kick, a little sweat on the nose, right? Same idea then when it comes to investing for retirement. You always want to have a mix of different types of ingredients, different types of investments, different types of assets, stocks, bonds, real estate, commodities. And it's the mix that matters. Some of you may say, well, why would anybody invest in things like CDs or money markets? Because maybe they're currently paying very low rates of interest rates. Some of you may say and recollect 2008 and think, I am never doing anything with the stock market again because I got burned and I never want to have anything to do with stocks ever again. Remember, it's not how these investments work on their own that matters, it's how they work together. It's the mix, just like making salsa. So if you're again looking at our investment options brochure, we want to turn to pages 4 and 5, and here we have for you 8 of your own custom salsa investment ingredients. You can, in essence, create your own custom investment salsa. On the left side, we have kind of the bland, boring tomatoes, avocados of the group. A lot of substance, not much zip. These are the income fund, the bond fund. So if you look down at the bottom, you can see our little risk-reward meter says these are low risk, but low reward. You look at the bar chart, you notice one of the nice things, there are no negatives, or the negatives are very small if there are any. Of course, on the flip side, the positive returns aren't very big either. If you go way over to the right side, we're looking at the jalapenos of the investment world, the stock funds. You look at our risk-reward meter at the bottom, you can see these are high risk, but also high potential reward. You look at the bar charts, do you see some big negatives there? For sure. There's also some big positives though. And because we don't know from year to year, is it going to be a good year for stocks, or a good year for bonds, or a good year for real estate? Who knows? No one can truly predict the future. A lot of talking heads out there on the financial news networks that try to tell you they think they know what's coming, but truly no one knows. And because no one knows, that's why we would always encourage you to have a mix of different investments. Again, the stocks, the bonds, the real estate, and so forth. And that way, if stocks have a bad year, hopefully the other investments in your mix will have better years or have a good years and possibly offset those losses. So with these 8 funds, you can make your own custom salsa any way you want. Now, on the other hand, if you say, you know what, I just don't have time to do this, or I just don't understand it, I don't want to understand it, it's just not my thing. Do you have off-the-shelf salsa? We do. So on the next page, page 6, you can see our target date funds. And here's how the target date funds work. So let's say, for instance, you're interested in the 2040 fund. So you've said to yourself, that's closest to when I plan to start, that's the year that's closest to when I plan to take money out of my 401k or IRA. I can see underneath the 2040 fund listed here, the different components, the different ingredients inside this mix, the different investment components, if you will. And what's going to happen is each year between now and 2040, so roughly over the next 20, 25 years, we are going to slowly decrease the riskier side of the investments, the riskier components, things like stocks and commodities and real estate. We're going to slowly increase the safer types of investments, bonds, U.S. Treasury securities. So over time, we're going to slowly decrease the risky, increase the safer components. So by the time 2040 rolls around, you're going to be in a nice, safe overall investment mix. So the 8 core funds that we talked about, where you can make your own custom mix of salsa, that's essentially the do-it-yourself version. You're in control. You get to choose. Make the mix however you want. If, on the other hand, you're more of a, I want you to do this for me, the do-it-for-me option are the target date funds. In addition to that, we have one other investment option for you, and that's listed over on page 7, and it's a brokerage account with Charles Schwab. We call it the Personal Choice Retirement Account. In this brokerage account, you can trade individual stocks, individual bonds, There are thousands, literally, of mutual funds that you can choose from. So pretty much anything you can imagine in your retirement account, you can probably invest in it through this option. Just be very careful if you choose to use this option, because it's very expensive to take lessons in the stock market or the bond market if you don't know what you're doing. If you do, on the other hand, fantastic. Take advantage of the brokerage account. That's what it's there for. If you're one of those people who likes to trade frequently, that's what this account is for. If you're more kind of a set it, forget it type investor, probably want to use either our target date funds or the 8 core funds. Now, when should you start saving for retirement? Our encouragement to you is always sooner rather than later, and here's why. Let's look at a simple example. Here we have an early saver, late saver. They're both going to invest $100 a month. The early saver is going to start, let's say, at age 25, and then going to invest for 10 years faithfully, every month, $100 a month for those 10 years. The late saver, on the other hand, says, well, I've got other priorities right now. I know I should save for retirement, but I'm going to wait. I'll start when I'm age 35. Now, by age 35, though, the late saver, he's committed. So he says, you know what? I'm going to invest $100 a month for the next 30 years, all the way up through age 35. The early saver gets to stop at, say, age 35. The late saver starts at age 35, goes for another 30 years. They're both going to earn 8%. Again, this is a hypothetical number. I'm not saying there's any type of investment out there that provides 8%, just simple math. They earn 8% through age 65. The early saver has invested a total of $12,000. The late saver has invested a total of $36,000. So then the question is, who do you think is going to have more money at retirement? The late saver, about $149,000 roughly. Not bad. Put in $36,000, have $150,000-ish. Not bad. How about that early saver though? Wow. Only invested $12,000, but has $200,000, almost $200,000. What's the difference? They were both doing $100 a month. They both earned the same rate of return. The difference was time. The early saver had those early 10 years, and those extra 10 years, because of the rule of 72 we talked about earlier, made an extra roughly $50,000 difference. So start sooner rather than later. Don't wait is the message. So we talked about when you should start. These guys saving $100 a month in this example. That, of course, leads to the question, how much should you be saving? To find out how much you think you should be saving, you can sit down one-on-one with a URS investment advisor, and we'll help you figure out how much you should be saving towards your own retirement. I'll explain to you in just a bit how to do that. How do you make any and all changes to your retirement savings? Basically, you do everything online through URS, through the URS website. We have a screenshot here. You can see you're going to sign into the account through the member login section. Once you've done that, you'll get the overview page. Here you can see you have access to whichever plans your employer happens to offer you, 401k, 457, maybe both the IRAs as well. If you're already enrolled in one of these plans, you'll see that the button says Access, one of the green buttons. If you want to start a new plan, it'll say blue. It's blue and says Enrolled. Click on whichever one or ones that you're interested in. Let's assume, for instance, you're interested in the 401k. Well, then comes the question of how much am I going to be saving in my 401k plan? So you click on Access the 401k. On the left side, you'll see about 3 buttons down or so is the contribution deferral amount. Here you can tell us how much you want to be saving per paycheck. You can save a percentage of your paycheck or a dollar amount per paycheck. It's entirely up to you. We would always encourage you to try and go percentage whenever possible. That way, if you do get raises, promotions down the road, your savings will go up automatically as well. Again, it's entirely up to you, and you can change this whenever you want. The next question, your investments. What's your mix going to be, your Salsa mix? So down below that, we have the investment option available to you. Again, you can see here all the different investment options available to you. One of the target date funds, one of the 8 core investment funds, those are all available to you. Again, you can choose whichever one or ones you're interested in. Just make sure the percentages that you choose to invest add up to 100%. As long as you're in here, in the system, down at the bottom, you can see beneficiary review. We always encourage you to make sure that your beneficiaries are current, so if something were to happen, we would know who you want your money to be passed along to. You can name anyone as beneficiaries in these plans: spouses, children, grandkids, siblings, charities, anybody that you want. If you get married down the road or you get divorced down the road, always make sure that you keep your beneficiaries current. Have new kids, have new grandkids. Log back into the system, update your beneficiaries. Takes maybe a minute or two to keep your beneficiaries current. Now, I also mentioned earlier that if you wanted help with maybe figuring out what investment mix is right for you, or figuring out how much should you be saving for retirement, you have the opportunity to sit down one-on-one with the URS investment advisor, and we'll help you figure out the answers to those questions. To do that, you click on the Education tab, as you can see here on the far right side, and then on the left side, you're going to click on Counseling Sessions, and then you'll be able to see all the various times and places where we'll be offering counseling sessions. Sign up for a time and a date that's convenient for you. In addition, here on the URS website, we also have calculators available to you. We have a savings plan future value calculator where you can estimate how much your 401k or IRA might grow to over time. We have pension calculators that can help you figure out how much your pension might pay you once you reach retirement age as well. Those are here on the website. Take advantage of them. They're great tools for doing what-if planning. What if I stay an extra year or two in the pension system? What does that do to my benefit? What if I add an extra 1 or 2% to my 401k? What difference might that make down the road in retirement? Finally, speaking of 401ks, when you do change jobs, particularly let's say if you've just come here from, say, a private employer or you've come out of state, we would always encourage you to cash in your old 401k. Don't cash it out. Remember, we talked earlier, if you're under 59 and a half, you cash that 401k out, you got to pay state, federal income tax, and you're looking at that 10% early withdrawal penalty. One of the biggest sources of regret, as I mentioned, from all our retirees, they look back and wish they'd never cashed out their 401ks. Small amounts do add up. So we would always encourage you to cash that in instead. So here's how you do this. Figure and statistics across the nation tell us roughly half of all job changers do cash out those 401ks. Bad news, taxes, possible penalty. Worse news, they're giving up the opportunity to take advantage of that rule of 72 compounding that we looked at earlier. They're giving up potential tens of thousands of dollars that they could have available to them in retirement. So don't cash out your old 401k. Instead, think about rolling it here to URS. The process, pretty straightforward. It's a one-page form. The form's available here on our website as well. You fill that out, give it back to us. We'll do the legwork for you from there. Good news, when you roll directly from your old 401k to URS, there is no tax consequence whatsoever. Nothing's taxable. There's not even any reporting to speak of. So always roll that money over. Keep it in some type of retirement account. Don't cash it out. So here's your to-do list. Sign up online if you haven't already. Create your URS account. Name your beneficiaries. Always keep those beneficiaries current. Choose the different savings plans. Remember, you may have up to 4. Choose whichever one or ones that you're most interested in. Take advantage of them. Remember, you can have a combination. Start saving today. Start saving something. Time. Super important, right? Start sooner rather than later. Time's on your side. Take advantage of it. And then maybe think about increasing how much you're saving each year. Maybe bump up your savings by 1% or 2% a year. Maybe even think about this. You get a raise, promotion down the road, maybe go halvesies. Maybe take half of your raise, your cost of living adjustment, put that into your retirement account, your 401k, your 457, and then keep the other half in your paycheck. Your paycheck still goes up in value. You felt like you got a raise, but hey, you also increased your retirement savings. You never missed that money though, because you never saw it to begin with. Pick your investment options. Make your investment salsa. Do your own custom mix if you want to do that, or choose one of the target date funds. We'll do it for you. The important thing is you got to take action now. You're here on our website. So when we get done watching this, log in, make whatever changes you need to make. Because, as you can see here, this quote from Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, knowing is not enough. We must apply. Willing is not enough. We must do. I think he was kind of the Yoda of his time, if you remember Yoda saying things like, there is no try, only do. Same for you. Don't think about this, don't wish about it, go out and do. Thanks for your time. Log in now. While you're here, go make those changes.